Good afternoon. I checked with Richard at the beginning of chapel, trying to identify what is the liturgical color for today. It's green. And tomorrow will be, all right, I made my own today. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. I have been remarking in some of my classes that we are living in a time that some observers have labeled the Great Overwhelm. Others have called it the Great Exhaustion. We are witnessing a widespread sense of collective chronic stress and a combination of generalized anxiety, fear, uncertainty, and there is a sense in some communities that the world is no longer a safe place. So there is so much disruption, so much fragmentation, disconnection, alienation. The mood of the world is not good. And there is something almost like a blizzard of violence that is difficult to keep up with. Perhaps it is an understatement to say that we are living in tumultuous times. Yet it is in these times that we are here, in this place, at this location and at this institution whose mission is to provide theological education and leadership in pursuit of a just, sustainable, and generative world. Our mission cannot or can never be so relevant and bold. We are here because we have a sense of call, a sense of vocation, and we are here to be prepared, to be trained, to be equipped, and to be sent into the world to attend to the needs of the world through our ministry and service. We are here to be prepared and to be equipped and to be sent back to a world that literally is aching to be restored and to be made new. We are here to be prepared and to be sent to a world where life is hard and messy and complex, if not chaotic. We are here to be prepared and to be sent to attend to the needs of the world and to what theologian Jürgen Moltmann has called the open wound of life in the world. And this requires not only taking on a certain attitude, but a deeper sense of vocation and identity rooted in compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, forbearance, and yes, love. In the text that was read earlier for us, Paul writes to the Colossians, reminding them that they are God's chosen ones, holy and dearly loved. Other translations say they are God's people, holy and beloved. The idea of being chosen, of being holy, of being beloved speaks to a sense of calling and vocation, to a sense of identity. So being chosen, holy and beloved points to the idea of being set apart, not because we are so special, no, but a sense of responsibility and sense of purpose and mission. And this sense of calling is spelled out in the 7 qualities or attributes Paul exhorts the Colossians to embody and to manifest. Again, we repeat: compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, although I like endurance, forbearance, and love. Paul invites the Colossians to clothe themselves with these qualities. And the term to clothe ourselves is about practice. He's inviting them to practice these virtues. So this is quite a laundry list of attributes and virtues, and we would be deceiving ourselves if we said that putting these attributes into practice is easy. These are aspirational. And so these are not things we approach as a checklist of activities we do occasionally, but rather we are to approach them as practices we intentionally engage in daily, like we put on our clothes every day. So there is a formational aspect to this. As we practice these virtues, we are formed into an identity, into a vocation, and we develop a way of living and a way of being in the world that manifests the love of God. So let's look briefly at each one of these virtues. Sometimes I prefer a 3-point sermon or 4-point sermon, but there are several here, so please bear with me. The first one is compassion. Compassion is an emotional response that moves us to help those in need. It is an expression of empathy and a genuine concern for the well-being of others, and especially those who are in distress, those who are suffering. Now, what is the opposite of compassion? What happens when compassion is absent? The opposite of compassion is indifference, apathy, and even hostility. And so the absence of compassion leads to negative behaviors like being unresponsive to others, being cold, and being aggressive, and perhaps even lack of social interest. When we lack compassion, we exhibit behaviors that are hurtful to others, and this can manifest as indifference, as apathy, and hostility toward others. And that's why the absence of compassion can also manifest as cruelty, the willingness to cause harm to others. The absence of compassion and empathy is detrimental to human well-being and to life as we know it. Howard Kleinbell, one of the leading figures in the study and practice of the pastoral tradition in North America, once suggested that compassion, empathy, is an essential psychological and spiritual nutrient or ingredient without which life or human life as we cherish it cannot be sustained. From early infancy to childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, middle adulthood, late adulthood, and yes, even in old age, we need empathy. We need compassion. We as human beings will never outgrow the need for acceptance, for affirmation, for tenderness, for warmth, for nurture and love. Compassion and empathy are the ingredients that nourish and sustain life. And so cultivating compassion benefits those around us and help us really build sustainable and meaningful community, and perhaps even a good society. Paul is therefore exhorting the Colossians and we as readers of this letter, to care, to nurture, and to sustain life. Now, after compassion, there is kindness. Kindness is an action that reveals compassion. It is an action that arises out of a sense of empathy. A kind person is considerate of others, and they tend to reach out to others to offer support, encouragement, understanding, presence, companionship in situations of need. And so, an act of kindness is a natural outgrowth of a heart of compassion. Kindness involves showing consideration and sensitivity toward others. The opposite of kindness, cruelty, which involves behaving in harsh, malicious, or hurtful ways. And unkindness disregards the well-being of others. And so, again, Paul calls them to be kind, to have compassion, and to exhibit this in interaction with one another. Because these are things that make for the good life and the life worth living. Then there is humility. This is really a tough one. Humility, especially for people of privilege and those accustomed to holding power and dominance. But this is an essential practice for followers of Jesus. There is a quote attributed to C.S. Lewis that says that humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. So this is about decentering self and being able to see other people, their experience and realities, their experience, their pain, their suffering, or maybe, yes, their joy as well. The focus then for Lewis is on humility as freedom from self-preoccupation. And so he suggests that true humility is not low self-esteem, but rather the ability to think of yourself less. And so humility can be an expression of grace. But unqualified humility can be problematic and even dangerous for the historically marginalized people, the oppressed, and those who are already deemed invisible by society and by the world. We have learned from feminist and womanist scholars and other liberationist theologians about the dangers of the sin of hiding, self-effacing. So humility understood as decentering, self-emptying may not be life-giving for those who are already marginalized and erased by society and by the world. They need to be lifted up and sustained. And so compassion and kindness for those who have privilege becomes important in terms of changing the way things are for the people who are marginalized and those who are rejected and effaced. The text talks about meekness. Other translations use gentleness. Gentleness involves responding to others with tenderness, with empathy, and with care. And it involves being considerate. Now, to be gentle is not to be weak. Somebody has defined gentleness as having strength under control. In that sense, one uses one's strength to reach out and to care for others. And it involves responding to others with a soft touch. Although these emotions, compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, some people view them as signs of weakness. But anyone who is compassionate, who plunge themselves in situations of need, know it takes a lot of strength to be compassionate and to be kind. And then there is patience and forbearance. To be patient means to be steadfast, and so this means standing firm against adversity without giving up, and it means endurance. And forbearance means showing patient restraint and self-control and tolerance. As if all this list is not demanding enough, Paul goes on to say, above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And so above all these virtues, put on love. So this is all about love. All these virtues are undergirded by love. And so love here expressed in the community is the highest virtue, because it brings all these other virtues to their full completion. But love sometimes is misunderstood. We have so much used this word that sometimes we lose its meaning. In the biblical sense here, but also love that makes a difference is not just that warm, fuzzy feelings. Love that makes a difference is that deep-seated ethical commitment to justice and to the well-being of others. So all the 7 virtues Paul exhorts the Colossians to put on are social emotions and behaviors. And these virtues orient us toward each other and toward God and toward the world. They take us out of our inward focus and self-concern and help us live in a posture of openness and hospitality toward the world. And so they bring us into relationship with each other and in the community and the world around us. And so these virtues also challenge us to see the realities of life for what they are and to grieve and to mourn when we see that compassion and kindness and humility and gentleness and patience and love are absent in our world, in some spaces, in most spaces maybe, these days. Also, because these virtues and behaviors are action words, we are called to resist, therefore, not only to mourn, but to resist the absence of compassion, the absence of kindness, the absence of humility and gentleness and patience and love in our world, especially since their absence means presence of injustice, aggressiveness, cruelty, and violence. But as we mourn, grieve, and resist the apparent absence of these virtues, I'm reminded of the words of Desmond Tutu, former Archbishop, who is no longer with us. And he was asked, why are you so happy and so sure that there is goodness in the world and that things will be all right given what you have seen, the violence, the suffering, deaths? And he said, oh, because human beings are profoundly good. There is goodness in the world. And so the challenge for us, even as we see unkindness and violence, to not lose perspective, not to see the good, because there is goodness. Oh, I have seen goodness in Minneapolis, in Los Angeles, in New York, in Delaware, in Columbus, in Gaza, in Jerusalem. There is goodness in the world. May God give us the grace to see that goodness, but to not lose perspective also of grieving and resisting. Amen.